Hello and welcome to Tech TV. I'm back with my colleague Pete Warren, and today we're just going to be talking about Agentic AI. Now, Pete, tell us a little bit of Agentic AI and explain who it is that we've got to join us today in terms of a special guest.
Well, the idea behind Agentic AI is it's an evolving one. I mean, it's essentially that the AI itself, in a sense, has a certain amount of identity within the AI system, and it can have permissions that are allocated to data or to particular things that are actually happening. And we're going to be speaking to André Baptista, who is he's heading up a conference in Portugal, and he's talking all things AI and all things computer security, because computer security is one of the things that's really gone missing in this entire dialogue about AI. Because if you've got poor data, if you were using AI to attack systems, then we've got a real problem with AI. André, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here. How are you?
Yeah, very good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Now, André, I've been told some glowing things about you. I've been told that you're the Cristiano Ronaldo of hacking. And this is something that you're particularly interested in, keen to get the message out about. Go on and tell us.
Okay. Yeah, so thanks for that. Was a good intro about Agentic AI. So yeah, I'm André. I'm an ethical hacker. So some newspapers called me actually Cristiano Ronaldo of cybersecurity. I didn't name myself like that, but I'm from Portugal, and I've been working with organizations worldwide to find vulnerabilities, basically, but on the good side of the history of information security. And you're right, security is really important, especially in the age of AI, because with AI, and if we forget a bit about cybercrime itself and we focus more on information, as AI being available to like pretty much everyone, we are witnessing more misinformation than before, because it's really easy to fake videos, for example. It's really easy to create these deep fakes, to create very convincing texts and stories, right? And that's also related with information and the security of the information. But I'm more focused on cybersecurity, right? It's more about the AI threats to the security of the systems we depend on today, and to make sure that they are resilient and that they are as much secure as possible by finding their vulnerabilities, basically.
Okay, so what are those threats? I mean, my reading of this is that if you can use Agentic AI to do penetration testing, if you can use AI to be a cyber threat, you're going to very, very likely to be a big player in cybercrime, which probably will mean that you're probably going to be a nation state.
That's not very accurate. It's more like there's a good side on offensive security, right? So what we do is that we do ethical hacking. And it's true that even cyber criminals, nation states, and so on are also using AI. And there are reports, for example, from Trend Micro that report this year. And also chief information security officers are really aware that this is having an impact on their organizations, for example. And there were reports as we have been witnessing attacks happening like around 20 minutes after disclosure of a new common vulnerability that may affect a lot of systems. So what we try to do is to be on the good side of things. We still do hacking, but we do hacking without damaging any system. We do hacking until a certain point so that we can find those vulnerabilities. And then if the organization patch them as soon as possible and is able to prioritize them, then they'll basically get hacked in a ethical way before the bad guys do it. And that doesn't replace the defensive security, which is more related with detecting these vectors as they happen, but we should also apply and hack ourselves before the bad guys do as well. And that's something that we basically work on. And we are also combining agentic AI to be able to scale this technology, to be able to scale what pen testers can do, because in my opinion, we are late into fixing these vulnerabilities, and maybe sooner we won't be able to trust the internet, and that would be really bad.
But that's the problem with so much of this, isn't it? What is happening at the moment is there is an erosion of trust that's generally occurring because of this. And you're suggesting a world where, somebody finds a hole and somebody instantly rushes out to try to plug it. It's almost like a little boy putting his finger in the dam, isn't it?
I mean, it's all about finding these open windows that we can basically do a correlation with buildings. All right, it's like there are these buildings that are invisible in the digital world, and those are basically applications. Those can be even vibe coded applications these days, right? And they have windows which basically can contain vulnerabilities, right? And some are open and some are closed. Our job is to make an ethical work to make sure that we find these open windows with proper authorization. And that authorization can come from defined policies with bug bounty programs, for example, or they can basically, and a lot of companies are actually hiring these kind of services or platforms to make sure that they are doing a continuous pen testing to improve their security posture 24/7.
André, there's one question that everybody will be pondering about, and they'll be pondering about they've been pondering about this for decades, and that is, why can people keep on finding holes in the code? What is wrong with the code if you can carry on doing this? I mean, we've seen the attack against Jaguar Land Rover, which everybody's feeling quite badly in the UK, but we've also seen the attack on all of the airports. This is beginning to be destabilizing.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's a shame that it's happening and affecting the availability of systems that we really depend on as a society. Like even in Portugal, we also had where I live, like we also had major disruptions multiple times, and it's a trend. And I hope it doesn't grow more than this, because we are trying to fight it every day, and we are trying to fight fire with fire. We are basically, as the AI scales for the criminal side, we also try to scale it to understand if we can keep up and be ahead of those threats. But when you talk about the code, and you mentioned like what's the problem with the code, it's just how it works, and it's just how security works in general. And basically, as if you have sufficient code, the vulnerabilities will also exist, because we all make mistakes. And even if the code is written by a human, or even if it's written by AI these days, because like around half of the code at Google is already written by an AI, for example. We all make mistakes. We have, and it's human to make mistakes, and machines also make these kind of mistakes. And it's just how it works, because we cannot achieve 100% security. There's always a vulnerability that may exist in the code. What we can do is, one, to try to find as much vulnerabilities as possible, to make it really difficult and almost impossible for a sophisticated actor to find those, even by using AI tools to also do it, by doing it first. And secondly, we, on the blue side of things, on the blue team side of things, we should also be able to detect these new threats. We can also leverage AI for that. There are multiple solutions that actually try to detect new vectors as they happen, so that organizations can be safer these days, both public organizations that we depend on as a society, but also private organizations that we also depend these days for our daily life, our daily jobs. And we are on a mission to try to prevent this, or to minimize the impact as much as possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, you talk about the fact that there are always going to be vulnerabilities. Is it the fact that programs and applications are now so large, so bloated, that it's impossible for a human being to actually go through all of the codes for many of these large applications and programs, and that we need AI and agentic AI to be able to find these vulnerabilities?
Yeah, as code grows, and nowadays code is growing a lot because our teams are faster. Like what one programmer can do with the help of these AI tools, it can do the work of maybe 10 or 20 people, right? Because it has a co-pilot behind him, like to give him speed. So we are building software faster, and that will increase the attack surfaces of the organizations, right? So obviously we also need to be able on the analysis side of things to understand that we should also use these kind of tools to scale what we can do and to be able to analyze and test a larger portions of code. So basically, we need to keep up in terms of security. We need to keep up with the technology and the building side of things to find the balance. Because right now, it's getting a bit unbalanced, in my opinion.
Do you not think that we're reaching a stage now where to actually be a bad guy is becoming an increasingly bad thing to do? Because given the fact that there is now such dependency on the code, so much dependency on the internet, to be interfering with these large code models, as Bill's just talked about, is potentially not just irresponsible, it's extremely dangerous. You could really create an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, so basically, and I was mentioning that in the beginning, as AI is basically able to analyze and to find vulnerabilities and even launch attacks. And if that is available to everyone, obviously that will lead into problems because kids, like, and I was a kid once, right? We all were. And once we start exploring these kind of things, we may make mistakes, even if our intentions are good and we are kids. But there are a lot of kids that are still trying to figure out if what's ethical and what's not ethical and how we define what's ethical, right? And in that sense, it's easier today with agentic AI for kids that start exploring these to eventually, launch an attack against some organization, right? And that's true. I agree with that. But we must see it as a tool, and we must keeping putting the word out, and maybe at schools as well, to make sure that kids use AI in a responsible way, not just think about kids potentially launching cyber attacks, because that happened already, and we have seen some reports and news about that. It's mostly about kids that are creating, for example, deepfakes of their colleagues, and we have seen some reports on that. And it's everything related with the AI usage. And on the AI model side, there has been sufficient work, or it's still a work in progress, let me correct, and to make sure that these models cannot be used for bad purposes, right? To ensure proper guardrails, to ensure that these models do not perform actions that are not ethical. And that's a major area of concern for the biggest players in AI right now.
And I believe that you've created a hackbot that you're using to fight in an AI-powered environment to take on the attackers, and that you're speaking at a large event in Portugal. Tell us a little bit about this hackbot and how it works.
Yeah, sure. So that's the main technology we have been researching at Ethiack. And it's basically working as an agent that helps human pen testers to do their job better in terms of our research internally to find vulnerabilities in systems. In the beginning, we had an engine, without mostly any AI, doing these kind of continuous analysis, and we were able to find vulnerabilities before the bad guys, and organizations that are our customers basically were able to patch them. But then we moved on into developing Hackbots. And Hackbots are basically agents that can be both copilots or fully autonomous, and they will be running over the applications, simulating what an ethical hacker like me would be doing while approaching a target on a pen test job, right? So the difference between Hackbot and traditional scanner that is already have been in the market for quite a while is that it has context, and it can try to think, and it can be trained to think like a hacker, right? Like an ethical hacker in this case, because we must ensure guardrails for this technology to make sure that it behaves in a safe manner. So the idea is that it's better than a scanner, but there's still a gap between what a hackbot can do and what a human can do. And the difference is that a scanner may be scanning, for example, an online shop, for example, from an organization, and trying to find vulnerabilities to report to that organization. And the difference with the Hackbot is that the Hackbot knows that that's an online shop. So it may try to find a vulnerability specifically on the checkout flow from the online shop. And that changes the game, and that allows us to find the vulnerabilities that we should have already found to be more secure in the digital age, especially with AI-enabled attacks.
Okay, I'm going to be a little pedantic about this because obviously it can't think. So what you're saying is that it emulates the thinking of a hacker rather than because I think it's very, very important to make these distinctions, because otherwise people get completely the wrong idea about AI systems. Now, one of the other issues about some of this too is we're running into a situation with these bots which is also potentially dangerous. It was noted a couple of weeks ago that pro-Trump bots had started to fight each other because they'd got different agendas. So one bot had been programmed to actually push an Epstein dialogue because it wanted to actually raise that issue in the minds of people. And then a latter bot had been programmed to try to take Epstein off the agenda because it was no longer in the interests of many of those people who were pushing that political strand of thought. And so the bots started fighting each other. We could get into a position, if we're not careful with all of these bots running around the internet, that we don't know what they're doing at all, couldn't we?
Yeah, that's super interesting. I didn't know about that story. It's definitely very concerning, and in my opinion, this kind of bots, and I mean in general, controlling, and that's more my opinion outside of my daily work, in using this kind of technology to manipulate the opinion of people it should not just be done. Like it cannot be done, in my opinion, because I mean, one thing is good influence, right? It's trying to push and try to show that we can do the work, and we can, we have our ideas, and we are in a democratic discussion about those ideas. Another thing is to push these agendas through by leveraging AI technologies and manipulating people and not telling the truth and not being factful. And that's something that, in my opinion, is completely off limits with this technology. So I agree, like this is not new. Like we have been seeing these kind of things in the past, even without agentic AI, right? And we have seen scandals like, Cambridge Analytica and like all the political stuff. And now with AI, this is even crazier. And I think that it's not going to change any soon. I just think that people need to understand that they need to be more careful about analyzing the information that they'll be receiving, and not buying stuff instantly, right? Not buying these news instantly. So yeah, it's not an easy problem. Misinformation is classified actually by the World Economic Forum as one of the most problematic questions for the next few years, and that's even a bit worse and more ranked in the World Economic Forum report from the beginning of this year when compared with cybercrime and cyber warfare, which is also a huge problem, right? We cannot or afford our systems to stop, right? But yeah, we are trying to, like, fortunately, like, companies not just like mine, but also other organizations worldwide are trying to fight this problem. And I just remembered in terms of misinformation, and maybe you have seen it. I think that LinkedIn already included that in some posts, which is attribution with content credentials. And that's a joint initiative from Adobe and other organizations worldwide that basically try to create a standard for multimedia content online. And the idea behind it is that when you see a content, you can try to understand, you can see, and it's signed digitally, like we sign with IDs these days, and we make a mathematical proof that we are the authors over that video, for example, or that image, and you can see potential alterations or modifications to the content. It's a super promising technology that may help solving these kind of issues, in my opinion.
Well, that inevitably drives to the next part of all of this, which is we're rapidly getting to the stage where we need some organization like the United Nations to get involved in all of this. We need something that drives this ethical debate, because it's dangerous to interfere with technology when it becomes something that everybody is depending on. We're talking about the oxygen of the metaverse, for want of a better expression. We're talking about the stuff that runs the world that we're all now heavily dependent on. And so, as well as this ability to be able to interfere with the code, we've got to really drive this ethical message into people, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. And one of my jobs in the past few years, or goals, is always about demystifying the hacker word. Originally, the hacker term wasn't a bad term, and hackers were just tech curious people, and that were trying to improve technology and try to understand the depths of technology, and that were passionate about it. And all of a sudden, like, the term rapidly evolved, and now when we heard about the word hacker, we instantly say, oh, it's a bad thing, right? And I'd rather call the people that use this kind of knowledge to do bad things, to steal from people, from organizations, to blackmail, to damage systems, and so on, the crackers. And that's the term that we prefer usually in the security communities in the world. There are the white hats or the black hats. I don't like that definition so much. For me, there are the hackers, the good guys, and the crackers, which are the hackers that should not be hackers in the first place, in my opinion. But it's important because, and getting back into the kids topic that we were discussing before, and the idea about demystifying this concept is that if kids know that they can use these skills that they may be developing early on their lives to do good things, and that they have a very important mission, which is to protect the internet, the metaverse that we were describing, Peter, I think that, or I'm pretty sure that they'll think, okay, I'll have a potential career in the future when I'll be an adult working on this industry and trying to contribute for a better internet, for a free internet that we can trust, basically, and obviously with some rules so that we can understand, okay, what's real and what's not real in that digital world.
Now the Hackbots that you talk about are obviously a big stride forward, and it's really helping the work that you do. But this is the kind of technology that could just as easily fall into the hands of the crackers, the people on the wrong side of the fence. And therefore, we're probably looking at a cyber AI arms race where they've got two different camps using very similar technology to try and automate and improve their ability to either detect and exploit vulnerabilities or to detect and patch them using very similar technologies. Are we seeing an arms race here? And if so, who's winning?
Yeah, there is. And the cyber arms race isn't new, right? And the AI introduced a new tool into this kind of topic. But it's not entirely new, right? Because we have seen, if we talk about unknown vulnerabilities in systems, those are known as 0 days. those have been happening for quite a while. Multiple 0 days have been used to infiltrate the phones of high privileged people. To, if you remember, Stuxnet, which was an exploit used to infiltrate also nuclear facilities, like almost 2 decades ago. And it's not entirely new. Like a lot of countries have been developing and stockpiling these kind of cyber weapons. Okay, when we talk about the AI arms race in cybersecurity, I have no doubts that multiple countries are working on it, right? But also organizations, because in my opinion, these kind of things that we develop, like Hackbots or tools that can be used to find vulnerabilities, those can be used for 2 reasons. One, which is the good one, the real hacking one, is to find vulnerabilities because we want to patch them. The second one is to find vulnerabilities because we want to exploit them for a malicious purpose, even in a war context, right? That should not happen. One way is peace and the other way is war, right? So fortunately, I'm on the side that basically believes that this technology is really good to make sure that we are able to find these vulnerabilities in advance, to make us as strong as possible to avoid that the potential hacker tries to find these vulnerabilities. But yeah, like there are multiple companies. This technology is rapidly evolving, and there are companies working on these. But I have no doubts that there are some states also working on it.
Yeah, I mean that was the Stuxnet was the attack on the Iranian Natanz nuclear enrichment plant, where it destroyed the centrifuges which were enriching uranium for use as a weapon. And bearing in mind that very recently, the Americans launched a kinetic attack on the nuclear arms program of Iran. It shows that it's still an ongoing thing, and that this arms race is, in so many different ways, becoming part of the geopolitical system. Just going back to one point that you were making, you were saying hackers and crackers. Doesn't it make more sense to say criminals? Because hackers, as you said, it was a good term in the early days. It meant somebody coming up with some way to find a workaround on things. One of the problems that we're having with technology at the moment is one of definition. We did a program earlier in the week where a lot of people were saying the problem with AI is that the definitions are very, very loose with regard to AI, whether people are talking about large language models, whether they're talking about machine learning. Nobody really knows. It's all getting lumped together. We need some much clearer distinctions, because a criminal is a criminal, isn't it, André?
Yeah, I'm completely aligned on that. I would say that the cracker is a subcategory of criminal. It's a cyber criminal, right? It's just like how we usually name it inside the ethical hacking communities, right? And we are trying to fight those forces, right? We are trying to understand what we can do to make sure that even if those criminals use LLMs or use other types of technology to make agentic actions that are not predictable, because these kind of models are now connected with multiple tools and they can function, that they can browse the internet, they can do a lot of things, right? And so the possibilities are endless. And we must make sure that we are prepared to resist these kind of attacks, and if possible, to prevent in the first place, to make sure that we do analysis, like when we go to the doctor, right? One thing is to make analysis on ourselves, right? The other thing is waiting for the disease to come, and then it's going to be more complicated for us. And the same applies to the digital health, right? In my opinion. And some of these questions are really important topics that we have been discussing in a conference that we have been we organized the first edition this year, HackAICon in Lisbon, when we discussed basically about hacking AI, but also AI powered by ethical hacking. So it's both about trying to assess the security of AI systems, but at the same time, trying to understand how can we use AI to improve security, both defensive security and offensive security, to try to understand what are the latest trends, what are the latest problems with the models. And that's something that we are planning to organize every year now at Ethiack to make sure that we have serious discussions and talks on the topic that are focused not on selling stuff, for example, like there are a lot of conferences for that. This one is for discussions and has been for technical insights on these topics that really matter and concern all of us.
André, thank you. I mean, you've underpinned the crucial need for ethics in cyberspace and how we're going to really have to reinforce this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, and I hope your event goes well, not only this year, but for the years to come.
Yeah, and I hope you join soon.